Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're delighted to have you with us, and we're delighted to be kicking off this session with Curated Content. We've got Adam and Cass. So Cass is the Managing Director of Curated Content. She'll be hosting today's session, and Adam is with us, and he'll be able to take questions. So you'll notice there's a chat function in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, so please feel free to shoot through any questions and Adam will facilitate that process for you. In order to get started, what I'd like to do is hand you over to Cass Pope, who will be able to walk you through today's slide session. Thank you, Cass.
Thanks, Derek, and good morning, everyone. I certainly hope someone's got sunshine somewhere dialing in because it's freezing and wet where we are. But good morning and thanks for bearing with us for a few minutes, and let's go. Okay, today I am going to make some assumptions. The fact that you've all dialed in, I'm going to assume that you have heard of content marketing. I'm hoping that in some ways you've actually been a beneficiary of content marketing in so much that you've been educated over because of an article, or you're following someone's blog, or you're learning via LinkedIn to improve your knowledge in a particular industry, or you're using content to research a product or even a vacation or something. So that is all content marketing in play. So today we're going to take you through what's one of the most important parts, and that is how to develop a content marketing strategy. But to start off, I guess if I just wanted to backtrack a little bit to what I just said a moment ago, content marketing is really a form of marketing driven by content. So when we talk about that, we say that it's really about creating great, useful, helpful content and being able to distribute that content to a highly targeted and relevant audience. And the idea being that that audience will appreciate the content they're receiving, they'll find it helpful, engaging, interesting, and ideally they will be a loyal ambassador for your brand or your business, and hopefully they'll share that content with their friends. But we all know that, any goal without a plan is just a wish. So that's where we come into content marketing strategy. And by that I mean the plan. We can't really attempt to execute any kind of content marketing play without a proper strategy in place. Otherwise, it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks. The strategy is the plan or the blueprint that provides you with your goals and a roadmap to help you achieve those goals and really thrive as a brand. A simple way of looking at it is saying, if content marketing was the car, the content strategy are the keys to the car. I think if you stay with me throughout this session, you'll find some basic tips and fundamentals what makes a really good content marketing strategy, and away you go. So I guess just to sort of tell you, I can't overstress the value and importance of before you start writing and publishing blogs and making infographics, or whether to take a step back and form a cohesive strategy, is that without that strategy, it's really just content for content's sake. And the fact that 61% of marketers surveyed in a recent poll that was conducted by the Custom Content Council said that they have had absolute improved results when they work from the strategy. And let's face it, when there's a plan, everybody's a lot relaxed and calmer in the room. How do we start to develop a content marketing strategy? What do we do first? Firstly, I want to say that there's no single cookie-cutter approach to making a content marketing strategy, because every client is different. They have a widely varying audience. They have different goals. Some organisations pursuing more brand awareness goals. Other organisations want sales and conversion of leads, people to buy products or services. So every content marketing strategy is different to suit the needs of your specific organisation or brand. Each company we work with is different, and what we want to sort of get through to you today, or talk about today, is that the way that each company communicates their services is different, and everybody's story is unique. So what we do as a company and what we hang our hat on is different to our partners today, Marketing Cube, and what they are their real value propositions that they are keen to communicate with their customers. But what we do want to do today is give you a process and a blueprint that enables you, if you follow it, to focus on the strengths of your brand or organisation, be able to identify the gaps, what's missing, and how you might be able to address and fill those gaps to meet the goals of your organisation, which are the business goals. And we're also going to show you how to create a unique workflow process that enables you to implement your content strategy. So once you have your plan, we're going to show you a workflow process and then some steps to implement that. Okay, so this is my key killer slide. I think if we can answer these 9 questions, we'll be able to pull together a basic content strategy that you can then finesse and grow as you start to get the hang of content marketing. So the most important thing is, why do we want to reach people? Then we want to know who exactly we want to reach. What are we going to talk to them about? Who is going to create the content to engage them? How are we going to reach them? When are we going to reach them? What do we want people to do once we have captured their attention and engaged them? What does success look like? And how are you going to measure it? Now, each of these questions has a relevant answer, and when we answer that, we'll be able to unravel the core elements of content marketing strategy. Let's start with, why do you want to reach people? So when we answer that question, what we're really answering is, how are we going to achieve your business goals and objectives? What we are wanting to know is, we're talking about the message we communicate, the platforms we use, and the type of content we create. But really, we want to firstly know why. What are our business goals? Why are we trying to reach people in the first place? Okay. Next, we want to clearly identify the objectives that are the foundations of our strategy. Who is the audience we're trying to reach? What message are we trying to send to them? What's the kind of content we can create that is of value to our audiences? And what action do we want our audience to take? Who do you want to reach? I can't stress the importance enough of this. Who is your ideal target audience? We're always working with our clients to segment their audience into buyer personas or customer personas, and every piece of detail, the more detailed we can make these personas, the more effective we'll be in our execution of our content marketing strategy to reach them. And generally speaking, we divide that audience into a primary audience and a secondary audience. Obviously, our primary audience are our most important customers. They're the people that we must attract the attention of. They're the people that we must have our message right in front of at the appropriate time, on the right channel that they use, and at the right time of year, etc. Our secondary audience is sort of more of our kind of beginning to be, and our long tail audience. They're not our primary market, but they're our secondary audience, and those people are also great advocates of our message. So they're also likely to learn from us. They might not be the key decision maker, but they'll certainly develop their knowledge and potentially share our content with the key decision maker who might be in the primary audience. Once we have worked out what we want and who our audience are, the next thing we need to do is talk about what we're going to talk to them about. Now, this is really important because, as we know from our own experience, how we research, whether it's a holiday or buying a product or learning about a specific topic on the web, we don't necessarily make that decision in the first 5 minutes. So really, the buyer's journey is divided up into 3 basic phases. The first one is the awareness. The second one is the consideration, and of course the third and most important is the decision. And I just want to unpack those a little bit more for you guys. The awareness stage is really when somebody realizes they've got a problem or a challenge, and they turn, mostly with where our content lives, an online environment to seek a solution of the problem they're facing or the challenge they're facing. So that's when they're starting to do research, and they're going to be becoming aware of your products or services because you've somehow presented a solution to their problem. So this is a really important phase of the journey because where the customer who's researching is really comparing at this stage, saying, okay, Curated Content offers a solution, but so do these other guys. I'm not going to name any other guys. It's my webinar, and these guys are too. So I've got this problem, and there are maybe 3 or 4 companies or organisations that provide a potential solution to my problem. So the next part is the consideration phase, and this is a stage at which companies are kind of beginning to think, okay, well, what makes service provider number 1 different from service provider number 2? What's their offering that's better than the other guy or girl's offering? And this is where they're looking for a deeper level of content and we're going to talk about the types of content in a little bit, but this is where they're wanting a deeper dive into your content offering to help them make the right decision. I think a good way to sort of talk about this in a practical sense is, say your boss has asked you to find a solution to a problem, come back and present her with that solution. You know, you don't want to make an idiot out of yourself. You want to really show your manager that you have carefully considered the number of agencies out there, and these are the top 4 agencies that you think could best deliver a solution to suit your company's needs or your fulfill your manager's challenge. And with that, you want to look good, so you're doing a deeper dive into these guys have a nice shiny website, looks really great, really fun. And look, there's dogs on the Instagram feed, but let's take a deeper dive into you. How are these guys better than the rest? And then once you've done that and you've really looked into things carefully through the content, then you're in a position to make a really considered decision. And you feel comfortable with the content provided that you have made the right decision. So what does that look like? So in the awareness phase, what would you be researching? Articles, blogs, reports, white papers, ebooks, anything that is informing you. And let's use a practical sense of content marketing. Your boss says, like, you know, maybe we should start making content to reach our customers. It's a great innovative form of marketing, and you think that's a really good idea. You start researching and thinking about, so you're looking at all the blogs on content marketing. Then you're beginning to consider, and for the consideration phase, we need to have content that goes a little bit deeper. Potentially an infographic that's a data-driven, that might have some statistics on it that are visualized in a really engaging way, and that's giving you a numbers argument to consider content marketing. Motion graphics are great, or we call them explainer videos. They're when we take you through a process or a service, and it might be how something works. We might use an animation to show you how marketing automation works, or a back-end or CRM system or something, platform. So they're really easy, engaging, and great forms of content. Of course, video, which is, I don't really need to talk too much about that, hugely popular. It's a great personalized way of discovering things, and we can use overlays and stuff to get through that. And of course, written content. Then, when we need to make a decision, there are media pieces of content that you'll be looking for in that phase. That's case studies where you might be taken through a real example of a client having a problem solved, testimonials, presentations. These are the forms of content that you'll be really looking for in your decision-making phase. You'll be comparing case studies from one brand or company to another. So it's really vital that you consider some of these forms of content in your content marketing strategy, but also different forms of content at different phases in the buyer journey. So I won't need to talk through that too much. You guys will be able to see all this information when I'm finished, but as you can see, this is just a slide that really dives into some of the additional forms of content in those phases that I just talked about. Okay. One of the other questions we're going to need to answer for a content marketing strategy is who is going to create the content. And when we talk about this, we're like, who's on the team? You might have a marketing organized team, but you're like, you know what, nobody's a writer on the team, or nobody's a designer, or no one's an animator, or I can't write and I'm a sole provider and I'm good at a whole bunch of things, but I'm not so great at writing to blogs. So this is where you really need to have a look at what type of content you're able to make, and who in-house can make that content, and if someone in-house can't make that content, then that's when you need to think about outsourcing those forms of content. Once you've made the content, the next step is how are you going to reach people? So that is where we're talking about content planning, and that's a really important part. So that's when you're going to set up a calendar, and you're going to first populate it with all the relevant times of year or month that are relevant to your industry. If it's retail, obviously it's going to be the holiday season. If it's accounting practices, obviously it's going to be mid-year in Australia. So that gets populated first. And then we start planning the type of content we're going to publish or create or distribute on that calendar. So we might decide to do, each week we'll do a blog, but once every 6 months we'll do something meatier like an ebook. So that's really, once we have that plan in place, and often that content that we're planning is aligned to a specific time of year or season in a business, the stress is taken out of it because we know exactly what content we have to make and when. It's really important when we work with lots of teams in organisations that we have one person take responsibility of the content calendar, and that's a great job for someone who's really enthusiastic, really wants to be involved on the team, but it might not have strengths in actual creation of content. That person who keeps that calendar as one of the most important roles in anybody's content marketing team. And what they'd be looking at when they manage the calendar is, this is the type of content we're going to create, this is when it's due, this is the topic, and this is who's going to create it. And then their job is to hassle them for the rest of the time until it's due. So the keeper of the calendar is the crucial person in this play, and I can't stress that enough. But if you have a calendar and it's all laid out, then it's not nearly as daunting as if you were, again, just creating content on the fly. Additional things we would suggest that you add to your content calendar is including in blog that you have, and topics that you've chosen, is target words or keywords. That's really important, especially if from an SEO point of view, and also dates and that you intend to publish this. And often we'll find that with a good piece of content that did really well, that's evergreen, meaning it's not specifically related to a time or date. So, for example, it might be top 10 tips for posting images on Instagram. We'll publish that piece of content again 6 months later or 3 months later. We'll reuse that piece of content because it always does really well. This is a slide that you guys can take some time to look at, but it is quite interesting to start, once you've got your content calendar in place and you're looking at your content channels and platforms, to think about what's the best day to publish and what time. So and believe it or not, there are clear data that speaks to appropriate times and optimal times to publish. So that's really exciting. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is how are you going to reach people? And we talk about the type of content, and we divide that content into core content, newsworthy content, and divisible content. So I just want to touch on those. Divisible content is what we repurpose from your core and basic content, which blogs, short videos, guest articles, micro infographics, and executive quotes. So you might have done an interview with someone, you've got some great quotes. That divisible content would be pulling a quote from an article and publishing it on social media. If you've designed an infographic, we'll pull those short data sets out and we'll post them as micro content on social media. Of course, if you know anybody who's got some knowledge or expertise in a field, they'll be only too happy to give you write you a guest article or blog that you will post through your channels. That's great for them. And of course, if you have a video or a motion graphic, we can shorten those into micro content for Instagram or something, where we're looking at 10, 20, 30-second video content. Newsworthy content. So that's timely content that is relevant to a particular news cycle, industry event, trends, political or cultural mood. Newsworthy content is probably fairly topical in the last few weeks, or the last week at least. So again, these are blogs, white papers, thought leadership articles, where's the country going, infographics, breakdown of votes, motion graphics, and SlideShare presentations. So these have the capacity, this kind of content, get captured in a larger conversation that's going on. So that's we call that a long tail value. Core content. So these are our key foundation pieces of content that are directly tied to your content initiatives or ideas, what you do, what you're selling, what your business goals are. They can be, as I mentioned, evergreen, top 10 tips for publishing on Instagram that isn't going to go out of date. It'll probably just be tweaked every few months as an algorithm change happens or a new rule comes on the platform. But these pieces of content have a really long shelf life. I won't go into them again, but you can see the formats below. So, objective. You're using content to build brand awareness and leadership. You're needing to create really strong and decisive content that leads to a conversation, to education, to engagement, and gets noticed. That is the aim of the game. Now I want to briefly talk about channels. What we do is divide up content distribution channels into 3 buckets: earned, paid, and owned. Now this is really important This is your distribution channel. So you've got your content. How are you going to get it in front of everybody else? Firstly, let's start with I'll just go back to help you through that, the owned media. So owned media is that's your content. That's your content channel, rather. That's your Facebook page. That's your Instagram feed. That's your blog. That's your website. That's something that you control the publishing schedule. It's your own database. It might be your newsletter database. You don't have to fight for those eyeballs or fans. You've already got them. The next one is earned media. Now that's when we talk about earned media channels. I've made a piece of content. I publish it sometimes through my channel, and somebody shared it. Somebody's engaged with that content. Somebody's taken that content and republished it, retweeted it. An organisation has said that's a really valuable piece of content. We'll use that and put that on our website, or we'll publish it on our blog, or we'll link to it on our blog. That's an earned media opportunity, and that's really, really great. And obviously, the better the content, the more likely it is that other people will want to share it or point to it. And of course, the third one is paid media. That's a paid content channel. So that's when we have a paid strategy, and we use Facebook, for example, or Instagram, and we're having a budget behind a highly targeted audience. And the idea is that nirvana in the middle is your distribution strategy. So if you've got a huge owned database, it's more likely you're going to have a lot more earned opportunities, distribution opportunities, which means you'll have to rely less on paid media. So everybody's, if you think about that as a Venn diagram and the sweet spots in the middle, everybody's is different depending on how strong their owned channels are, their earned networks and opportunities, or their paid strategy, or how much they have to rely on paid distribution strategies. Okay, and on this slide you can see basic examples are everything from Facebook to LinkedIn to, of course, Outbrain, which is a content discovery platform. There's lots and lots of different channels and platforms for paid opportunities. But the general idea is if you work harder at producing better content, your earned and owned opportunities will mean that you have to rely less on paid. So the all-important thing, the conversion question, what do you actually want people to do once you've reached them? I've engaged someone. What do I want? Someone's interested. Someone likes the brand. What do I want to happen now? That's when we go back to the business goals and outcomes. So that's when we have to say, well, what does success look like? And this is a really great slide and something to remember, because the metrics are, without a goal, we can't really measure success. So this is a lens to look at that. So we're looking at goals. When we want goals, they need to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. If we can work out goals based on those key drivers, that's what success is going to look like. And how are you going to measure it? What kind of tools are you going to measure it? We use the Oracle Marketing Cloud to measure success and our marketing goals. It's a very powerful platform and certainly something worth looking at. If you look on the next slide here, you'll see what's underneath the bonnet. So you've got a great dashboard. You can keep track of your goals, your data, visits, etc. This is hugely powerful, and I won't go into it too much now because I'll be here all day because it's a pretty powerful motor. It's certainly worth a local website and having a look. Okay, it's a lot to take in, and I appreciate you guys staying with me. You'll probably have a bunch of questions, but let's start and see if I can help someone. Okay, Rebecca, tell me how could a content marketing plan help an art gallery grow, and how is this different to a social media plan? Okay, well, a social media plan is essentially content that you're going to create to go out through social media channels. So you're restricting your distribution channels to social platforms. A content marketing strategy looks beyond that. We say that social media is one channel strategy, but there's also a number of other opportunities as well. We would look at EDMs, newsletters. We would look at blogging. We would look at, if I was an art gallery, and I was promoting an exhibition, I'd be looking at doing interviews and Q&As with the artists, and I'd be publishing that. I'd be turning to them for content that's relevant to specific art that they were promoting, and I'd be publishing that through my own channel. And then if it was a great article and a really interesting article and the artist was really quite engaging, I'd be looking at giving that link to a number of other arts organisations or galleries that promote similar arts. And I'd also be looking to the artist's own databases of their artists, their customers that have bought their work, and I'd be promoting content through their channels as well. If you don't have the big budget to do videos and interviews, etc., webinars or blogs or just Q&A interviews over email with an artist or something like that is a really cost-effective way to produce content. And I have to say, I've seen some really great footage shot on an iPhone, so don't think you need, a studio or lights, camera, action to create good video content. Okay, Kate, do you have any specific calendar app sites that you would recommend using for content calendar? I do. We try with our clients to recommend free web-based tools, and I can't live without Trello. So that's a free web-based platform. It's Trello, Trello.com. It's also a really great app. I think it's an iPhone and Android app. With Trello, you'll be able to create a workflow screen where you can sort of make lists, and they have a fantastic calendar functionality that plugs in. And inside of the cards on the lists, you can attach documents, you can assign tasks, you can put due dates. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's free. Also, if you had a little bit more budget in your organisation and you're sort of beginning to take content marketing to the next level, a local has a fantastic calendar that integrates into their back end of their platform too. And that has an automatic publishing capability, so you can pre-populate a publishing date and that will automate, which is absolutely handy. Okay, Kathy, when you create a content calendar, how far in advance do you do it and how do you set it up? How much content is too much? That's a great question, and as a content marketer, you can never have enough content, trust me. I think that you would start with a content calendar. What we often say to clients is, we say day one is, I've done my strategy, now what? Then we look at it in a sort of from day one to a 3 months point. We look at 3 months to 6 months, and then we look at 6 months to 12 months. I think by the 6 month stage, you're going to be getting the hang of it, and it'll be running quite seamlessly. But I think that first 3 months is the time for experimentation and content planning. You're going to be seeing some stuff worked really well, some stuff didn't. You're going to be taking note, and you say every time we schedule content to be published on a Friday after 3 p.m. it goes bonkers. What is that? Is it because we're publishing content about cocktail recipes? There's a couple of things to remember. One is I would start with a calendar. I would think about my industry and I would populate it out for 12 months. Then I would pull that back, and once I have populated all the key events or relevant industry happenings, etc., that I talked about earlier, then I would kind of pull it back to what am I going to do for this next 3 months ahead of me. And I would ideally have I think, it's perfect, best practice probably to have an editorial meeting once a week, so you can look back and see what worked and what didn't work the week before and adjust accordingly. But I do know that that's kind of sometimes not practical. So every 2 weeks at least, I'd be looking at having my editorial meeting where I'm planning what we're going to do for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Quality is always the key with content. Always plan quality over quantity. It might be that you guys are working on an ebook that's 3,500 words long on content marketing best practice, and that's a premium piece of content, and you might publish something like that once every 3 months. Does that help, Kathy? What's some of the other questions, Misha, for organisations with very little of an owned audience, would you recommend boosting all our Facebook, Twitter updates? Do you think it's worth the money? Really, that really does depend. That's not a black and white answer, and it really does have some dependencies on who your audience is and what type of content they engage with. So obviously, if you have very little owned audience, I would put limited budget to try and grow my ubiquitous Facebook channel, and whether or not my second channel that I focus on is Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn really depends on is it a B2C audience, is it a B2B audience, what's my product, what's my service. So I think Facebook is ubiquitous, and we do have to put it in all our when we consider paid channels. But I think your secondary channel is something that you need to put some thought into. So I probably focus on 1 or 2 channels first. The other thing is making that list of, say you did create a great piece of content, because everybody in their own channels is with our Facebook page. We're not only just pointing to content that we create ourselves, we're also pointing to really great content that other people have created. And we're saying to our audience, hey, you trust us, we've read this article or blog, we think it's fantastic and we think it's really helpful, you should read it too. That's what people turn to us for, so they don't have to try and research everything on their own backs all the time. They rely on us to make sensible decisions about what they should and shouldn't read and how to educate themselves. So if you have a great piece of content, it's something that you would ideally be sharing to your list of partner organisations or customers, emailing customers and saying, here's something great, share it. Also, always have that call to action. Here's a great piece of content. Even if you publish it through your own Facebook channel, here's a great piece of content on cheese. Feel free to share it with your friends. Ask a question, a call to action to engage people. And you've got to stick at it. If you are going to make a decision to publish on social media platforms 4 times a week, then you have to stick to that. Another question. Standen wants a recommendation for a web-based site for creating video animation. Yeah, web-based platforms don't really produce the quality animation we're looking for. Look, I do recommend that you use an agency for that. As an example, we create 3D videos for a number of clients, and they start highly sophisticated animation, and they start for around $3,000 to $4,000 for 60 to 90 seconds. So that gives you some idea of what that kind of, when it's done properly, video content can cost. I think the problem with doing it on web-based platforms is a brand consistency, a style consistency, a voiceover that is in your native language, audio quality, etc. It's the customization piece that you don't really get on web-based platforms. Having said that, I also understand that from a budget point of view, outsourcing isn't always an option. So I would say go for it, trial and error, see how you go, and hopefully keep getting better at it. Another question. What if you have a new client who doesn't really know what they need as far as content goes? What's the best time frame to work with initially? Does a 1-month strategic plan or longer? Yeah, good question, guys. I really do think that it's a big ask to see clear results in just 1 month. I think when we work with clients, we really do manage expectation, and with our experience, we would be looking at ROI on content is usually 3 to 6 months. I mean, there's so many elements that go into that, answering that question. How much, what are we working with? Are we working from scratch with a client? Do they not have an own database? Do they not have a presence on social media? Do they have no email database? Also, lots of clients, in terms of the strategy work, if you're working with a small business, that's process and lens we look through to strategy. Remember that really important slide. I'll go back to it with those key 9 questions that you're trying to answer. If you go back to, if you are working with a client that just has a very 2 or 3 specific customer personas and audience, that's obviously going to take less time than a customer that has a highly fragmented audience, and that audience engages with content on a number of different platforms in a number of different formats, and different styles. So, going back to those 9 questions, that's what you need the time to answer when you're doing a content strategy for someone. And the more field work you can do with that customer or in that organisation, the better outcomes you're going to get. Sometimes we go into an organisation and we realise just how siloed everything is. So they're producing content inside that organisation, but they are doing it in a completely siloed approach. Therefore, you can see how the content calendar and the editorial meetings are going to bring all those content production efforts together in a really great, seamless, relevant way, and you're going to get the best out of resources inside of an organisation. How do you provide proof to your clients that content strategy has worked? You use Oracle to monitor results. Is that a platform that you can extract data to send to a report to a client? Is that part of your strategy for clients? My gosh, Kathy, it's like you're sitting here next to me. We've created strategies for several companies in Australia and in the US, and when we are demonstrating proof back of a court, absolutely. Primarily, a lot of our content efforts are digital, so the data it's easy to track the distribution and the engagement of the content we make, the data is everything. So yes, we do use Oracle to extract the data and get it into a format that we can present back to the client. We also demonstrate proof through case studies. We put prospects in touch with customers for a referral. So that's a really important thing as well, especially for small business. But it's important when you extract reports to show clients that they are stacking up to your efforts. We have a saying in our business called comb over metrics, and they're to be avoided at all costs. In other words, is vanity metrics. So for example, if you're going to base your efforts on Facebook likes, but those likes are kind of a passive metric because they're not really engaging with the content in any meaningful way, they're just liking it, then you've drummed up a lot of likes, but that hasn't translated into more product sales. We have to really question the value of that metric. However, if you based your efforts on shares of that content, so we know that that content was good enough that potential customers and leads were sharing that content, that's a much more powerful metric. So just when you're don't set yourself up for failure with a client. Really talk through the type of metrics and have that discussion that best fit your efforts. So don't go for the kind of lazy vanity metrics that are kind of meaningless. Really focus on those highly important metrics that point to engagement. Do the best times on social media tend to change over time as more people use that guide so you have more competition? Good question. Yes. We're constantly reviewing performance and update times. Social media times are also persona and industry based. So, some people are goofing off on a Friday afternoon, looking for bars with drink specials on Facebook in their office. Of course, that would never be me. Other people on a Friday afternoon in a business environment, it might be, I've just grabbed that hour, I'm done for the week, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read, I'm going to scroll through LinkedIn and I'm just going to spend an hour catching up on reading and information and education. So it is fluid. Some of those metrics have stood the test of time and are fairly solid, but there is a fluidity about it. And I can't stress enough, trial and error. Give something a go. You'll come up with your own secret sauce of when is the best time to post. And again, that's dependent on what the industry is. What's the age group? Is it B2C? Is it B2B? What's the channel? What's the platform? And also base it on your own use of social media. When you go onto Facebook or LinkedIn, put yourself in the customer's shoes. I think that's always a really good guide. Okay. So how can we become, we're always looking for great partners to work with, Beck. So Beck asked us, how can we become partners with Curated Content and leverage their organisation, which is a gallery. What we're interested in is people or organisations that produce great content that has a relevance to either our client base or our audience. That's what's really important. So, for example, and this is probably what we would call the long tail example, you represent a gallery and artists. We may work with clients that do events at galleries. So you can see how that would be relevant. So it's also about thinking out of the box. That the power of the long tail is that you kind of go beyond that primary audience into that secondary audience, and you sort of think outside the box in terms of relevance. And sometimes you have to suggest it. Sometimes you have to put the idea in somebody else's head. This would be great for, kind of like everybody thinks editors sit back behind their desk and think of the stories, but mostly it's the journalists pitching those stories to them. Okay, guys, it's been a great morning. I think we're almost done with the questions. I know I'm sort of talking on the fly here, and I've got a deck moving back and forth, but please feel free to email myself or Adam or Derek and follow up with some questions, and we'll hopefully point you in the right direction, and we certainly will point you into the right content direction for more information about something that you're specifically interested in. Okay, guys, thanks everyone for coming and sticking around. Again, any questions can go to marketing@curatedcontent.com.au and we'll be happy to answer them. Talk soon.
Thanks so much, Kath. That was fantastic. We've had lots of great interaction from everybody. As you might recall, there's 3 sessions in this series. So today's for beginners. Next Thursday, same time, will be our intermediate or our walking component. And then the third week, same time Thursday, again, will be for those who are running with content marketing. So we look forward to seeing you. The session has been recorded, and we'll be sure to get links to you in a few days so you can access some of these slides and also view the recording if appropriate. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day. Cheers. Bye-bye.